Hi. Today in this lecture, I will be talking about the characteristics of Romantic literature in England. Romantic movement is one of the greatest movements in the history of English literature, for it produced great number of poets and wonderful prose writers and very interesting novelists. Let's see what are the characteristics of romantic moment. Romantic moment, as we discussed earlier, is shaped by certain literary and historical events in 18th century. It was triggered by the fall of Bastille in 1789. At the same time, it was born as a reaction against 18th century classical tradition. I am Dr. Gurunath Badiger, Associate Professor of English, Government Pressure College and PG Center, Dharwad. And in this lecture, I'm going to talk about characteristics of Romantic period. As far as periodization is concerned, the Romantic movement is said to have started with the publication of lyrical ballads in 1798, a joint publication by William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge. And the movement ends with accession of Queen Victoria to the throne of England in 1837. So this is a period of about 4 decades, which produced wonderful poetry. It's called Second Renaissance. It's called Renaissance of Wonder. It's one of the periods where great poets like Wordsworth, Coleridge, Shelley, Keats, Byron, and great novelists like Jane Austen and Walter Scott, and wonderful essayists like Charles Lamb, Hazlitt, and Dickens were born. And to define Romanticism, Romanticism or romantic, the word romantic is obviously a word derived from the word romance, meaning a medieval tale in prose. Today, romance is also used for the words like novel as a synonym of novel, as a synonym of strange, as a synonym or a kind of a word that is opposed to tradition. Romanticism became more popular because of a stress on freedom of mind and democratic ideals. So Romanticism can be seen as a movement against the 18th century classical tradition. Romanticism is opposed to classicism. Romanticism is the symbol of freedom, liberty, fraternity, equality, and the victory of common man, which we see in the outcome of French Revolution. So Romanticism is also called Renaissance of Wonder by Walt Dunton. It's its addition of strangeness to beauty, someone said. If we look at certain definitions of Romanticism in 19th century, Walter Pater says it's the addition of curiosity to the desire of beauty that constitutes the romantic temper. It is the addition of curiosity to the desire of beauty. Again, you see the cult of beauty, addition of strangeness to beauty. So the romantic temper is in fact constituted by an addition of strangeness to beauty. So they try to find something in every object. That's what we see in Keats's work. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Heard melodies are sweet, and those unheard are sweeter. This shows that the romantic poets, romantic writers found beauty in all the simple objects. Professor Hartford writes, Romanticism is an artistic expression of sharpened sensibilities and heightened imaginative feelings. The word sharpened sensibilities and heightened imaginative feelings are very, very important. See, you see, it is not something that is dull and drab. It's not something that is monotonous. It speaks about the sharpened sensibilities and high imagination, which is a great characteristic of Romanticism. Professor Grierson, in fact, writes, I quote, what rules Romanticism is a revolt against classicism, and also it expresses new delight in simplicity and worship of nature. In this particular definition, you can see three important keywords. Revolt against classicism. Romanticism is revolt against classicism. It expresses new delight in simplicity. They found delight in all the simple joys, simple objects of nature, simple people. Say, for example, daffodil, say, for example, cuckoo, say, for example, nightingale, solitary reaper, Michael. In all these things, you see either there is a shepherd, or there is a reaper, or there is a butterfly, or there is a small bird like cuckoo. They found joy in all the simple objects of nature. And worship of nature is very, very important. All the romantic writers found joy, ecstasy, bliss in worshiping nature. Wordsworth called himself the high priest of nature. This shows that the romantic literature strongly believes in the power of nature. Let's discuss these characteristics. Romantic literature is known for these 5 important characteristics. Of course, there are other characteristics also. Love for mysticism, revolt against tradition, worship of nature or love for nature, expression of imaginative sensibility, and influence of French Revolution on literature. What is this love for mysticism? Are the romantic poets mystics, or they believed in mysticism, the mystery of nature, the mystery of life, the mystery behind every creation? It's a cheap characteristic now. Earlier, when they are young, they try to compete with nature, but ultimately they surrender. There is a self-surrender. There is a kind of a union with God. They found that what man cannot understand is certainly a mystery, either the mystery of nature or the mystery of God. If you look at the famous poem like the Rime of Ancient Mariner, it's mysterious that the dead mariners come out and they begin to steer the ship. All about the mystery of albatross. When the albatross comes to the board of mariner's ship, the ship which was stuck in the ice begin to move. Earlier the poet says, ice is here, ice is there, ice is everywhere. The ship was not moving. But when albatross, which comes like a Christian soul, the ship begins to move. But somehow the unruly mariner shot the albatross. As soon as he shot the albatross, the doom falls on him. The ship stops in the midst of the sea, and it's hot and dry. The water runs out. Mariner cries out, water, water everywhere, nor did a drop to drink. So here, Coleridge presents the mystery and the power of the supernatural. Similar is the case with Ode to West Wind. O West Wind, you are the destroyer and the preserver. Lift me as a wave, as a leaf, I fall upon the thorns of life. Shelley declares that the West Wind is such a mysterious power. So man looks at the wondrous phenomena in the universe with baffled amazement. A high sense of sublimity empowers him when he is in the presence of nature. So obviously, the romantic poets, even when it comes to Wordsworth, oh cuckoo, I can hear you at once near, at once far off. When it comes to daffodils, he says, when on my couch I lie in a vacant and pensive mood, they flash upon my inward eye. Then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with daffodils. The very mystery of nature which even satisfies you, even in its absence. Physical presence is not necessary. That's what we call the mystery. The second characteristic, revolt against tradition and rules of literature of 18th century. It is certainly a reaction against the urbanism of 18th century literature. It is certainly a reaction against the sophisticated neoclassical literature of 18th century. It is certainly a reaction against the prosaic literature of 18th century. That way, it is not only a political or social revolution, a change came over in all the three spheres of literary activities, that is matter, manner, and idiom. That's why Victor Hugo remarks, liberalism in literature means spontaneity and variety. Spontaneity means unrestrained flow of human emotions. That's why Wordsworth writes in the theory of poetry, poetry is a spontaneous expression of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. The spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, powerful feelings are very, very important here. Variety is a keyword of revolt against standardized classical literature. Classical literature was written, epic should be like this, elegy should be like this, but you don't find this kind of restriction in romantic literature. They used blank verse, they used free verse, they used, sometimes they wrote sonnets, sometimes they wrote lyrics, sometimes they wrote odes. That's the variety. They are not restricted to any form. The next characteristics is high imagination, the expression of imaginative sensibility. It is dominated by strong imagination. Imagination is the core characteristic of romantic literature. Romantics like Coleridge separated fancy from imagination. It's not something fanciful. There is the power of synthesis. There is a power of magnanimity. There is a power of sublime. If you look at Shelley's Skylark, if you read Keats's The Nightingale, my heart aches, there are drowsy numbness pains. And if you look at the famous statements like heard melodies are sweet and those unheard are sweeter. Keats's Ode on Gracie and Urn. And if you look at the great imagination and the Tintin Abbey, the digi joys and aching raptures, the word like ecstasy, it shows that even when it comes to daffodils, what a great imagination. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats over high vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake and beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Wonderful imagination. The poet comparing himself to a cloud, and he sees the golden daffodils. The yellow flowers look like golden daffodils, fluttering and dancing. A kind of a human touch is given. So, imagination, as far as Coleridge is concerned, if you look at the Rime of Ancient Mariner, the Christabel, Kubla Khan's Pleasure Dome, with cave, sunny pleasure dome with the caves of ice, 5 miles meandering. And this is very important characteristic. The fourth one is worship of nature, a love for nature. All the romantic poets are the lovers of nature or worshippers of nature. But the way they looked at nature is something different. They respect both nature within and nature without. The writers speak about nature liberalized. Such a representation invokes a sense of awe and reverence. Wordsworth called himself as the worshipper of nature or the high priest of nature. In Tintin Abbey, he writes, I have felt nature. For him, nature is a joy. For him, nature is a dance. For him, nature is everything. Sister, mother. So, child like Lucy. He speaks wonderfully to Dorothy, his sister. And he considers that nature has all the solutions for all the human problems. It's a nurse, it's a doctor, when he was disturbed by the bloodshed that happened in French Revolution, he comes back to Wye Valley, and the Wye Valley gave him all the peace he required. I felt the presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense of sublime. He felt nature. Wordsworth worshipped nature, and Coleridge found nature in its supernaturalism. Shelley philosophized nature. That's what I quoted, "Ode to the West Wind." "O West Wind, you are a destroyer and the preserver." He found philosophy. The dead leaves, the burial of the seeds, and they are born again. Like that's what we remember, burial of the dead in T.S. Eliot. The seeds are buried for rebirth. And Keats found beauty in nature, truth in nature. Truth is beauty, beauty is truth. It's a thing of beauty, a joy forever for him. Ultimately, all poets loved nature, and everyone wrote nature poem, whether it is a bird poem, tree poem, valley, river, everything influenced them. And lastly, we talk about continental influences of all literatures in the world. Continental influences means the French influence, particularly French symbolists like Mallarmé, Revolt, helped ushering in symbolism in English Romantic literature. German philosophers, German thoughts also influenced. Rousseau's idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity echo in English Romantic poetry. And the dependence on idealism is also one of the characteristics of Romanticism. Shelley came under the influence of Kant. The famous statements like child is the father of man. Other than this, Romantic literature is also known for various characteristics like simplicity of diction, simple use of language, love for elemental simplicities, of life. They loved simple things. And it is also known for supernaturalism, subjective expressions, personal literature. So if we look at all these characteristics, we come to know that Romanticism is the expression of sharpened sensibilities, emotion, and imagination. It takes us, of course, one more interesting thing is that they found joy in medieval ages also. It takes us to far off places in Middle Ages and introduces the reader to the world of strangeness and beauty. Love and worship of nature is the hallmark of Romantic poetry. And we know that some philosophers, thinkers like Rousseau, Kant, Revolt have influenced Romantic literature of 19th century. And obviously, because of all these characteristics, Romantic literature is developed into a great movement and remain wonderful part of British literature of 19th century. With this, I'm going to conclude this session. Thank you so much.